I don't know about you, but I am bad at managing my time. So sorry I haven't posted in a while. Oh! I'm making pancakes at 9 p.m. Anyway, we're kind of busy, with finals at school and everything. But, December just rolled around, school's about to wrap up. I figured I needed to post my drawing update video. A little over 3 months ago, I started drawing again consistently. And to be honest, not really sure what to think of my progress so far. I think I've made decent enough progress, but nothing really groundbreaking, nothing really noticeable yet. But I also think there's a lot of things that I've realized at this point. So the first question I asked myself was, in the last 70 days, I have drawn a lot. Not as much as I was hoping, but I've been consistently getting lines down on the paper for at least an hour each day that I draw. I'd like to say that I draw every day, but because I have a day job where I work multiple 16-hour shifts every week, that's just not a possibility for me. To be more specific, as of the 2nd of December, 44 of the previous 70 days since I started, or roughly 63% of those days, have included me sitting down and drawing for at least an hour for a total of 73.46 hours, which I think is pretty impressive. So, what's changed since day one? Now, originally, I planned on sticking to one sketchbook and using that sketchbook to track everything, making it a seamless process and super easy to follow. But around day 35, the second week of November, I was trying to catch back up in school after my midterms, and it started to hit me just how much time I spent sitting at my desk. I used my desk for literally everything: studying, homework, gaming, drawing. I spend a lot of time here, maybe 6+ hours 4 to 5 times a week. And when midterms and finals roll around, I have to put in that extra effort. And that number sometimes goes up to around 9 or even 10+ hours a day, 4 to 5 times a week. I was getting burnt out just from sitting at my desk, and it made it hard to really focus on drawing when all I wanted to do was lie down on the couch and relax, because I had convinced myself that I needed to do it in the big sketchbook. I started drawing less, and it was unrealistic to have thought I could add another mentally taxing activity at my desk when I already spent so much time abusing my brain there. So there was a rough 10 or so days where I just really couldn't get any lines on the paper. Because of this, I moved to drawing on my iPad, which I really wanted to avoid, and my smaller sketchbook, which is so much more portable and manageable away from my desk. But it means that I wasn't able to record some of the drawings, which was pretty disappointing to me, but this helped me keep things fresh and allowed me to get back into the groove of drawing. Now, the iPad specifically definitely made it easier for me to just go with the flow of drawing and not have to worry about everything that comes with filming. So I think I may continue using it for the time being, not as my main thing for drawing, but as something to mix in with the sketchbooks, especially to prevent fatigue at my desk. Of course, I'm not really a fan of drawing on my iPad using Procreate for sketching. For one, it feels overwhelming. There's an insane amount of brushes and options to use when it comes to drawing. It took me a decent amount of time just to find a pen, pencil, and a simple round brush that I like to use. And because there are so many options for drawing in Procreate, it feels like I need to try and flesh out my drawings more, or be more creative with them at least. When I have just one pen or pencil and a paper, it feels much easier to sit down and not even think about doing more than what I planned. Because of this, I made a rule for myself that I'm not allowed to switch from the basic round brush or pencil while using Procreate. That way my focus is on learning to draw and not Procreate itself. Speaking of my sketchbook and my iPad, you might have noticed that I'm not drawing faces in most of my sketches. If you saw my last video, you may have noticed that I said I was going to go through some old sketchbooks in my next video, but there were a lot of things that went wrong. I filmed the video twice and somehow corrupted the footage both times. So instead of filming it a third time, I figured it would be more useful to spend my time actually drawing. One thing I did notice was that the sketchbooks were full of faces. And I mean full of faces. I had spent so much time in these sketchbooks drawing faces that I was significantly better at them than the rest of the body. So I decided to keep the faces as simple as possible or just leave them out altogether. And honestly, I'm pretty good at drawing faces. I think I'm decently good at it. Here's an example of a self-portrait I did in November when I couldn't draw anything else. You know what? Here's a bunch of faces that I've drawn from when I used to draw a lot. Based on those findings, I figured it'd be a good idea to spend more time drawing the body and not the face. Now, I'm not saying I'm amazing at portraits, but I definitely have more of a grasp on the structures of the face and how to draw them than I do the body, especially when it comes to how the structures move in perspective. So with all that in mind, what have I learned so far? First, in order to keep track of what I'm drawing, I made this little spreadsheet right here. It shows when I draw and what I'm drawing that day. You can see here that I'm tracking things like hours drawn and the number of drawings, which is just a way for me to track the number of individual figures I'm attempting to draw, whole or partial. But personally, I think the most important metrics here are the effort, drawing type, and the detail levels. I say that because I believe you could draw for an hour every day for years and not see results unless you're changing and adapting, which requires a lot of effort. That's actually how my experience with drawing went a few years ago. I used to be consistent, but I would draw random things for hours and hours and make very little progress on them as an overall subject because I wasn't really trying. Then I switched to drawing just faces and I got pretty good at it pretty quickly. Another thing I use to track my drawing is this little app I have on my phone, which just shows me how many days I've been drawing in the recent years. Basically what you would see in a Git or Anki Stats type of thing. I don't know. Not super useful, but it gives me that good serotonin feeling every time I see that square go from dark to light when I check it off. Ooh.
Nice.
Now, have I really been doing enough focused drawing to make a difference? Personally, comparing my first drawings with the most recent ones, I can see a difference. But not one that's significant enough to say that I've learned anything or improved much. In fact, I think I'm more confused now than I was when I started. And I'll explain that in a little bit. But I have definitely learned some things. I hate to say it, but it really does all boil down to simple shapes for anatomy and simplifying what you see to make the process make more sense to your brain. I really wanted to just brute force things and jump straight into drawing what I see, either from reference or straight out of my brain. But after 70 days of this, I realized that the brain is just like any muscle. And only an idiot would go into a gym for the first time thinking he can bench press 235 or squat 405, thinking they won't get hurt. Or in my case, thinking I won't get frustrated with my drawing. It takes time to build the muscle to squat 405 or bench 235, the same way it takes time to build the mental muscle for drawing. After realizing this, I spent more time breaking down things into simple shapes and less time looking for the shortcut to getting where I wanted to be. Oh fuck, my pancake. I started getting really frustrated that I couldn't get the shape of the legs and arms correct. And then when I started drawing the simple shapes, everything seemed to work out a lot easier. I still mess up the anatomy from time to time, which it's expected. I'm not perfect, at least not yet. And I haven't even hit 100 hours of drawing, so I'm not expecting any big breakthroughs to happen yet. But it's crazy that I find myself making the same mistakes 70 plus hours in. In the 70 hours I've spent drawing, I find myself spending more and more time looking for the perfect reference to draw. And I know you've had this same problem. I go into the session with an idea of a pose or an angle that I want to work on, only to spend the first 30 minutes of my time looking for the correct reference, the perfect reference. This has been wasting so much of my time that I decided I need to change the way I go about reference finding. So here's what I do now. If I find myself scrolling through Pinterest or any other app really, and I see a pose I want to use as a reference, I take a screenshot and I add it to a folder for later use. Other than that, I have found some pretty useful websites for references, like Pose Maniac, which offers daily 3D poses that you can actually interact with. I find it very useful for getting the specific angle I'm looking for and for practicing drawing references from different angles because I can move the model around and check my work after I finish. There also looks to be a fairly large library of poses to choose from, but I haven't personally had time to look into it in depth. Another resource I've been using is Just Sketch Me, which is similar to Pose Maniac, but you can actually adjust the reference and choose the pose that you're working with. Now, I'm still new to using both of these resources, but I have been enjoying using them so far, and they're both free, which is a huge plus. These align really well with being able to simplify the shapes too, as the references are simple and don't have any clothing that can obstruct the anatomy. It's also been providing a good contrast between drawing from the simple 3D models and drawing from photo reference, where I can take what I learned from the 3D models and apply them to the photo reference in order to better construct the body. But even though I've learned a few things, I'm left with so many questions. In the same way a first-time gym goer might not know what exercise to do to build muscle or how to do them correctly, I find myself just drawing without knowing if it's really benefiting me. I have a general idea of what I need to draw, but what do I focus on? What are the basics? What resources should I use to improve my skills? Are some better than others? A basic Google search will tell me that the basics are building shapes, understanding form and proportions, and creating depth. But I look at another website and it's completely different. How do I really learn all these things? How do I know when I've learned enough and should move on? These questions are popping up faster than I'm able to answer them. And without any guidance, it's making it incredibly difficult to know when or even if they should be addressed. Hi, Rocco. Oh, my pancake! It's burnt. Oh, it's perfect. Last update, I addressed 3 main things I wanted to focus on: drawing from imagination and reference, understanding anatomy and perspective, and line confidence. These are still the 3 pillars that I believe will help me get better at drawing, and I've been keeping them in my mind every time I draw. Previously, I said that I wasn't ready to focus on drawing from imagination and drawing with line confidence. but I've since started adding that into my drawing practice. I've been sticking with pen for the most part and making sure to think about my lines when I put them down, but I also do the same thing with pencil when I use it. My lines have been really short, segmented, and I frequently find my pen moving in a slightly different angle that I'm trying to push it. Could this be a pressure issue, an issue with how I'm holding the pen, or moving my hand across the page? More questions that I don't have answers to yet. I'm not good enough yet to make any fast movements when doing the pen, so I've been trying to keep things slow, which is resulting in pretty shaky lines. All of this has made it an interesting learning curve, but I have noticed how much cleaner the drawings look when I actually take time to think about the lines before I put them down. It's also improved how quickly I'm drawing, as I'm not taking any time to redraw lines. Of course, I know there's a benefit to going back and fixing your drawings, which I usually do when I use pencil, but when it comes to pen, my goal is to try and put down lines as confidently and accurately as I can the first time, even if it means I have to make shorter lines that may not connect perfectly. Getting in the habit of this has also got me in the habit of looking at the drawing as a whole and comparing the proportions of different parts of the drawing much more, which is helping me with understanding where things really need to go and how big they need to be. Now, if we take a look back at my spreadsheet, I've been drawing from imagination quite a bit recently. I'm hoping to bring this down to about 35 to 40% of my drawings from imagination and 60 to 65% from reference, because I've noticed I still don't know enough about anatomy to really implement it into my drawings from imagination. But what I have drawn from imagination seems to turn out decently well. There's really no major improvements in how much detail I've been adding for imagination drawings. I'll attempt to draw in extra details like clothing or hair, and it never turns out the way I want it to. I'm sure this is a problem of not practicing how cloth or hair behave, and once I start implementing that into my reference drawings, I'll start including them in my imagination drawings as well. So, moving forward, overall, I think November has been a really good learning experience for me, even though I don't think I've improved much. Moving forward, I think it would be beneficial if I started drawing more than one thing in perspective. I feel like I've been limiting myself by drawing individual figures in a single perspective. Overall, I think November has been a really good learning experience for me. Even though I don't think I've improved much, moving forward, I think it would be beneficial if I started drawing more than one thing in perspective. I feel like I've been limiting myself by drawing individual figures in a single perspective. I think adding this could greatly improve my understanding of perspective, as well as my ability to draw things proportionally to each other. It could be as simple as adding a second figure in the same scene, or an object with a figure. Something simple like a box, or a chair, or a table. Really anything to make this perspective more believable and make the scene feel more alive. Going into December, I don't have the highest hopes that I'll be able to sit down and draw at my desk, as I'll be traveling quite a bit for the holidays. However, with classes and school not starting back up until the new year, I'm sure that I'll have many more hours of drawing under my belt before the December update. Whew. That was a lot of work to make those pancakes. I should probably go to bed before I wake up at 5. Later.